𝚑𝚑𝚗𝚍. Welcome, interstellar travelers. Today, we move beyond the limits of our senses and enter the threshold of consciousness, where the exploration of mind, body, and spirit begins to deepen. What if the mind could see what the body cannot? What if there are hidden realities inside us, waiting just beyond the edge of ordinary perception? Some people speak with spirits. Some slow their heartbeat to near nothing. Some pierce the body without pain, all through the power of the mind. What is it about the human mind that allows us to cross the threshold between the ordinary and the extraordinary? I've always wondered what lies beyond ordinary perception. How do people access these incredible states? And what can it teach us about the mind, the spirit, and human potential? For as long as humans have existed, we have searched for ways to experience something more, something beyond our thoughts, beyond what we can see or touch. Across time and around the world, people have discovered ways to open doors within themselves, to reach places that seem impossible. While each method is different, yet every path points to the same direction. The mind is far more powerful than we often realize. The threshold of consciousness is the boundary between ordinary awareness, the thoughts, sensations, and perceptions we experience every day, and the extraordinary states of mind that lie just beyond it. That invisible line that separates waking reality from realms where the mind can see beyond the body, where time and space feel fluid, and the limits of the self dissolve. Crossing this threshold does not require magic. It requires focus, discipline, and often a willingness to surrender to something greater than the conscious mind. Across cultures and centuries, humans have discovered countless ways to approach this boundary, through meditation, trance, breath, ritual, or even extreme physical endurance. Some describe it as a doorway to spiritual insight, others as a passage to heightened perception. Some see it as a place where the body and mind merge into one, opening to the unseen forces of life itself. Altered states of consciousness represent one of the most fascinating frontiers of human experience, a space where the mind and body interact in ways that defy ordinary perception. They leave measurable signatures in the brain and body, reshaping neural activity, shifting neurochemical balance, and influencing physiological processes in significant and demonstrable ways. Scientists have just begun to uncover the mechanisms behind practices humans have pursued for millennia, revealing a delicate interplay between the nervous system, brainwave patterns, and the body's own chemical symphony. From the deep meditative absorption of Buddhist monks to the ecstatic trances of shamans, altered states illuminate the extraordinary capabilities of the human mind, offering a bridge between ancient wisdom and modern science. One of the most remarkable aspects of altered states is the way the brain's electrical activity shifts during these experiences. Under ordinary waking consciousness, our minds typically operate in beta waves, fast oscillations associated with alert thinking and daily problem solving. Yet, during meditation, trance, or intense focus, the brain transitions into slower rhythms. Alpha waves emerge, associated with relaxed awareness and heightened focus, while theta waves bring dreamlike clarity, deep introspection, and creativity. In the deepest states of absorption, delta waves, usually seen during sleep, can dominate, revealing a brain that is both profoundly still and extraordinarily receptive. Alongside these brainwave changes, the default mode network, the neural circuitry linked to self-reflection and ego, often quiets down, giving rise to experiences of ego dissolution, unity, or timelessness that many describe in mystical or trance states. This remarkable neural flexibility demonstrates that consciousness is far more malleable than it may appear. The chemical symphony within the body plays a central role in altered states. Practices such as rhythmic chanting, meditation, breath control, or extreme physical endurance trigger the release of endorphins and enkephalins, natural opioids that reduce pain and induce euphoric sensations. Dopamine and serotonin, neurotransmitters associated with reward, mood, and bliss, surge during ecstatic or ecstatic-like experiences, amplifying feelings of joy, clarity, and transcendence. Some researchers also theorize that the brain may release endogenous DMT, a naturally occurring psychoactive compound, during states of deep meditation, near-death experiences, or extreme trance, potentially explaining the vivid visionary experiences reported across cultures. These neurochemical responses illustrate how altered states are rooted in biology, yet capable of generating experiences that feel profoundly spiritual or otherworldly. Physiological changes accompanying altered states are equally extraordinary. The autonomic nervous system, which regulates heart rate, breathing, and stress responses, can be intentionally modulated through meditation, yogic practices, or trance rituals. Monks and yogis have demonstrated the ability to slow their heart rate and respiration to near undetectable levels, effectively controlling processes once thought entirely automatic. Pain perception can also be dramatically altered. Focused attention, breathwork, or rhythmic stimulation can reduce activity in the brain's pain centers, allowing feats such as piercing the body or walking on fire to be accomplished seemingly without suffering. In extreme cases, practices that alter oxygen levels in the blood, such as hyperventilation or controlled breath retention, can trigger mild hypoxia, tingling sensations, or even temporary hallucinations, further demonstrating the interconnectedness of mind and body. Modern science has begun to rigorously study these phenomena, combining neuroimaging, physiological monitoring, and psychological assessment. Brain scans of experienced meditators reveal increased connectivity between regions responsible for attention, emotional regulation, and sensory integration. Trance states induced by rhythmic drumming or chanting show remarkable patterns of synchronization across the brain, correlating with reports of heightened perception, spiritual visions, and emotional release. Even practices that seem purely mystical have biological signatures, showing that extraordinary human abilities are not purely anecdotal. They are reflected in measurable changes in the body and brain. Yet, a profound question remains. How much of these extraordinary abilities are the result of biology, and how much arise from consciousness itself, reaching beyond the physical into something far more mysterious? For over 2,500 years, Buddhist monastics have explored consciousness with a rigor that rivals any scientific laboratory. Inside monasteries carved into Himalayan mountains, within forest hermitages in Thailand, and across Zen temples in Japan, practitioners have devoted entire lifetimes to mapping the inner terrain of the mind. Their goal transcends outward display. It is rooted in insight, a direct understanding of the nature of reality, the mind, and the self. At the heart of Buddhist contemplative practice lies meditation, particularly forms such as samatha, concentration meditation, and vipassana, insight meditation. Through sustained focus on the breath, a mantra, or a single object of awareness, practitioners train the mind to stabilize. As concentration deepens, attention becomes unwavering, distractions dissolve, and consciousness grows increasingly refined. Advanced meditators describe entering states known as jhanas, profound absorptive states characterized by intense clarity, equanimity, joy, and eventually deep stillness beyond sensory engagement. In the highest levels of meditative absorption, perception can shift dramatically. Time may lose its structure. The sense of a separate self can dissolve. The boundary between observer and observed becomes indistinct. Rather than an ecstatic frenzy, these states are often described as luminous, spacious, and profoundly calm. The body may feel distant or immaterial, yet awareness remains sharp and vivid. Tibetan Buddhist practitioners add another layer of remarkable training through practices such as tummo meditation, sometimes called inner heat meditation. In controlled studies, monks practicing tummo have demonstrated the ability to raise peripheral body temperature significantly, even drying cold, wet sheets wrapped around their bodies in freezing conditions. These outcomes are not metaphorical. They have been measured in laboratory settings, suggesting that intentional control over the autonomic nervous system is possible through disciplined training. Other documented phenomena include the capacity to slow breathing dramatically and reduce metabolic rate. Research conducted on advanced meditators has shown decreases in oxygen consumption and changes in heart rate variability, indicating enhanced parasympathetic nervous system regulation. Brain imaging studies reveal increased gamma wave activity, high-frequency brain oscillations associated with heightened awareness, integration of information, and deep compassion practices. In long-term meditators, structural changes have been observed in regions associated with emotional regulation, attention, and self-referential processing. Perhaps one of the most intriguing scientific findings involves the default mode network, DMN, the neural network associated with internal narrative, self-identity, and mind wandering. In experienced meditators, activity in this network decreases during deep meditation. This reduction correlates with reports of ego dissolution or non-dual awareness, experiences where the usual sense of I softens or disappears entirely. What ancient Buddhist texts described as anatta, the doctrine of no fixed self, appears to have a measurable neural correlate. Pain perception also shifts under advanced meditative control. Studies have shown that experienced meditators exhibit reduced activation in brain regions linked to the emotional suffering component of pain. Sensation may still be registered, but the identification with it, the mental amplification of this hurts, is altered. This may help explain the composed stillness observed in monks who sit motionless for extended periods, or who remain serene during physically demanding rituals. What ultimately sets Buddhist practice apart extends far beyond physiological control. The ultimate aim is liberation from suffering through direct insight into impermanence, interdependence, and the constructed nature of identity. These altered states become gateways to wisdom, reached through the threshold of consciousness with precision, discipline, and a stillness carefully refined over time. I begin to wonder if disciplined training can reshape the brain, quiet the sense of self, regulate the body's most automatic functions, and transform the experience of pain. What does this reveal about the limits we assume are fixed? For more than 3,000 years, possibly longer, the Indian subcontinent has been a living exploration of consciousness. The roots of yogic practice trace back to the ancient Vedic period, around 1500 BCE, with early references to ascetic disciplines appearing in the Vedas and later expanding in the Upanishads, circa 800 to 300 BCE. By the time classical yoga philosophy was codified in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, Around 200 BCE to 400 CE, a sophisticated inner science had already taken shape, one devoted to mastering the fluctuations of the mind and transcending ordinary perception. Unlike monastic systems centered primarily on contemplative stillness, many yogic traditions unite meditation with rigorous physical discipline, breath control, sensory withdrawal, and energetic practices designed to awaken dormant capacities within the body. Their aim reaches toward liberation, moksha, freedom from the cycle of birth and death, yet the path there often moves directly through the body itself. At the foundation of yogic science lies pranayama, the conscious regulation of breath. Far more than simple breathing exercises, pranayama techniques manipulate inhalation, exhalation, and retention in precise ratios. Practices such as kumbhaka, breath retention, nadi shodhana, alternate nostril breathing, and bhastrika, bellows breath, alter oxygen and carbon dioxide levels in the blood, influencing both the autonomic nervous system and brain activity. Slow, controlled breathing stimulates the vagus nerve, enhancing parasympathetic dominance, lowering heart rate, stabilizing blood pressure, and calming stress responses. More forceful methods can temporarily shift blood chemistry, producing tingling sensations, lightheadedness, or visionary states. Beyond breath lies asana and tapas, disciplined physical postures and austerities. Some ascetics hold challenging positions for extended periods, stand for years at a time, or practice prolonged fasting. Others pierce their flesh, walk across fire, or suspend their bodies from hooks during ritual observances. While these acts can appear extreme, they are often embedded in spiritual frameworks of devotion, surrender, and transcendence of bodily attachment. Through repetition and mental conditioning, practitioners report diminished pain perception and altered sensory awareness. A central concept within many yogic traditions is kundalini, described as a latent spiritual energy coiled at the base of the spine. Through meditation, breathwork, mantra, and disciplined living, practitioners seek to awaken this energy, guiding it upward through energetic centers known as chakras. Reports of Kundalini awakening frequently include intense heat, waves of bliss, spontaneous bodily movements, inner light, or vivid visionary imagery. While traditional language frames this as an energetic ascent, modern neuroscience offers parallel interpretations. Shifts in autonomic balance, activation of limbic structures tied to emotion, and changes in thalamocortical connectivity influencing perception. Scientific studies of advanced yogis have documented striking physiological adaptations. Research on long-term practitioners reveals enhanced heart rate variability, indicating refined control over sympathetic and parasympathetic balance. In some controlled observations, yogis have demonstrated the ability to slow metabolic rate significantly and alter peripheral body temperature. Electroencephalogram (EEG) recordings during deep meditation show increases in alpha and theta activity, and in certain adept practitioners, bursts of high-frequency gamma waves associated with integrative awareness and heightened cognition. Pain modulation among yogis has also drawn scientific attention. Focused concentration, belief systems, and endorphin release combine to reduce activity in brain regions associated with the emotional dimension of pain. The sensation may still register, yet the interpretation of suffering shifts dramatically. Hormonal responses change as well. Cortisol levels may decrease with sustained meditative practice, while dopamine and serotonin fluctuations contribute to feelings of devotion, bliss, or unity. What distinguishes the yogic path is its integration of body and consciousness as a single continuum. Rather than viewing the body as an obstacle, many yogic traditions treat it as an instrument, a vehicle capable of refinement, purification, and transformation. Breath becomes a bridge between voluntary and involuntary systems. Attention becomes a tool for regulating processes once assumed automatic. Through sustained discipline, practitioners reveal how perception, physiology, and awareness intertwine. As modern science continues to measure heart rhythms, neural oscillations, and biochemical shifts, an even deeper mystery remains. When breath can slow the heart, when attention can reshape pain, when disciplined practice alters brain structure itself, what does that suggest about the relationship between mind and matter? For over a millennium, Sufi mystics have pursued the divine through practices that dissolve ordinary perception and expand consciousness. Emerging from the early Islamic world around the 8th century CE, Sufism grew as a spiritual path devoted to direct, experiential knowledge of the divine. Sufi orders, from the whirling dervishes of Turkey to the contemplative orders of Persia, North Africa, and South Asia, developed intricate practices designed to unify the mind, body, and heart in ecstatic devotion. Central to Sufi practice is dhikr, the repetitive recitation of divine names, phrases, or prayers. Through rhythmic chanting, controlled breathing, and coordinated movement, dhikr engages both mind and body, gradually shifting practitioners into altered states of consciousness. In some traditions, repetition may be accompanied by whirling or dancing, as with the Mevlevi dervishes, whose continuous spinning over extended periods induces a profound trance-like state. This movement, when combined with focused attention and breath regulation, creates a heightened sense of awareness and unity, often described as phaana, the dissolution of the self into the divine presence. Scientific studies of rhythmic chanting, breathwork, and repetitive movement suggest clear physiological and neurological correlates. Heart rate may synchronize with the rhythm of chanting or spinning, while breathing patterns modulate the autonomic nervous system, enhancing parasympathetic activation and calming the body. Brain imaging in practitioners of repetitive spiritual rituals reveals shifts in theta and alpha waves associated with deep relaxation, focus, and introspective awareness. The repetitive, rhythmic nature of these practices can induce hypnotic states, leading to heightened sensory perception, altered time experience, and intense emotional or spiritual experiences. Another remarkable aspect of Sufi practice is the cultivation of ecstatic states through prolonged meditation and movement. In these states, practitioners may experience visions, profound feelings of bliss, or an overwhelming sense of connectedness with the universe. Neurochemical changes accompany these experiences, including increases in endorphins and dopamine, producing feelings of joy, transcendence, and even temporary pain modulation. Some contemporary neuroscientists suggest that these states involve enhanced connectivity between limbic structures responsible for emotion and prefrontal regions involved in attention and higher order processing. This integration may underlie the vivid spiritual and mystical experiences consistently reported by Sufi mystics across centuries. Sufi traditions also emphasize the refinement of the heart and mind as instruments for perceiving subtle realities. Meditation, prayer, and ritual serve not only as techniques for emotional and spiritual growth, but as tools for reshaping attention, focus, and bodily regulation. Advanced practitioners demonstrate extraordinary endurance, able to spin for hours without physical collapse, and maintain composure in states of extreme emotional intensity. Their practices exemplify how disciplined attention and repetitive ritual can alter physiological thresholds, enabling experiences that appear to transcend ordinary human limitations. Yet the essence of Sufi mysticism extends beyond spectacle or trance. The altered states cultivated through dhikr, movement, and meditation are pathways to insight, offering glimpses of unity, divine presence, and existence. Science can measure the physiological changes, the heartbeat, brain waves, hormonal shifts, but it captures only the outward manifestation of an inward journey that centuries of Sufi masters describe as the unveiling of the heart. As we consider these practices, the question arises, when repetition, rhythm, and devotion can reshape perception, regulate the body, and dissolve the sense of self, where does the boundary between biology and consciousness truly lie? For thousands of years, shamanic traditions have formed a bridge between human communities and the unseen realms. From the dense rainforests of the Amazon to the frozen expanses of Siberia, from the Mongolian steppes to North American plains, shamans have cultivated extraordinary skills that allow them to access altered states of consciousness, heal, and communicate with spirits. Their practices reveal a universal human impulse to explore the mind's hidden potential and harness it in service of the community, the spirit, and the self. In the Amazon rainforest, shamans, often called curanderos or ayahuasqueros, use ritual, song, and psychoactive plants such as ayahuasca to guide themselves and their communities into altered states. The ceremonies are highly structured. Repetitive chanting, ikeros, rhythmic drumming, and controlled ingestion of plant-based brews create entrainment of brainwaves, producing visions, spiritual encounters, and heightened perception. Participants frequently report vivid imagery, emotional purging, and deep insights, experiences linked in modern neuroscience to shifts in serotonin receptors, limbic activation, and changes in the default mode network. Physiologically, heart rate, blood pressure, and sensory processing can all be modulated through the combination of rhythm, breath, and chemical influence, illustrating how attention and ritual interact with the body's biology to create profound experiences. Across the vast Siberian and Mongolian landscapes, shamans engage in practices that rely heavily on drumming, chanting, and journeying. By entering trance states, often while wearing ceremonial attire or using symbolic implements, shamans navigate the spiritual realms for healing, guidance, or divination. The repetitive rhythms and intense focus induce theta and alpha wave patterns, similar to those observed in meditation and Sufi dhikr, and allow control over autonomic functions such as heart rate and breathing. In extreme conditions, shamans have been documented enduring freezing temperatures while remaining physiologically stable, a testament to the mind's influence over autonomic and endocrine systems. These practices highlight the power of sustained attention, ritualized movement, and intention in modulating both perception and bodily thresholds. Among indigenous communities in North America, shamans, often referred to as medicine men or women, employ a diverse set of tools: drumming, rattling, dancing, fasting, vision quests, and smoke purification. Vision quests in particular involve extended isolation in natural landscapes, often with minimal food or water, to induce profound altered states. Neuroscience suggests that sensory deprivation combined with rhythmic stimulation can amplify theta activity, facilitating insight, creativity, and a sense of unity with nature. Through these journeys, shamans report encounters with spirit guides, ancestral wisdom, and transformative visions. Physiologically, fasting and intense focus produce shifts in glucose metabolism, hormonal levels, and neurochemical balance, demonstrating the tight integration of body, mind, and environment in achieving these states. Despite the geographical and cultural differences, shamanic traditions share remarkable similarities. All rely on ritualized patterns of movement, sound, and attention to enter altered states. Trance serves as a portal for healing, divination, or guidance, and the physical body is not passive but actively engaged. Breath, heart rate, and neural rhythms are subtly tuned through practice, drumming, chanting, and focus, showing a clear link between consciousness and physiological regulation. Modern studies of trance states and shamanic ritual confirm that the brain and nervous system respond predictably to these stimuli. Brainwave synchronization, autonomic modulation, endorphin release, and altered sensory perception all combine to produce experiences that cultures interpret as spiritual or mystical. Shamans demonstrate that human consciousness can navigate extraordinary states while interacting with the physical body in unprecedented ways. They reveal the profound flexibility of mind and spirit, showing that altered states are not merely accidents or illusions, but reproducible phenomena arising from discipline, intention, and cultural framework. If the mind can walk between worlds, guided by rhythm and intention, what unseen dimensions might await an individual's self-discovery? For over 1,200 years, the mountains of Japan have nurtured a unique path of ascetic practice. Shugendo, the way of skillful powers, cultivated by the Yamabushi, mountain hermits and practitioners who seek spiritual awakening through endurance, ritual, and communion with the natural world. Emerging around the Heian period, 8th to 12th centuries CE, Shugendo blends elements of esoteric Buddhism, Shinto, and ancient mountain worship. Its practitioners traverse treacherous terrain, immerse themselves in rivers and waterfalls, and subject themselves to rigorous physical and mental disciplines designed to refine both body and mind. Central to the Yamabushi path is the cultivation of resilience and inner focus. Long pilgrimages through mountains, fasting, cold water purification, misogi, and solitary meditation are core practices. Through exposure to extreme environmental conditions and sustained physical effort, practitioners induce states of deep concentration and altered perception. Mental clarity, heightened sensory awareness, and profound feelings of connection to the natural world often arise spontaneously. Some Yamabushi report visions of deities, ancestral spirits, or natural phenomena, experiences interpreted as direct communication with the spiritual realm. Breath control and focused attention are crucial in these practices. Prolonged endurance, deep meditation, and immersion in natural elements modulate the autonomic nervous system, influencing heart rate, respiration, and stress hormone levels. Studies on practitioners of cold exposure and meditation indicate increased parasympathetic activation, reduced cortisol, and enhanced heart rate variability, all of which support physiological resilience and mental focus. Similarly, prolonged physical stress combined with mindfulness can trigger endorphin release, blunting pain perception, and enabling feats that seem impossible to untrained individuals. Neurologically, altered states in Shugendo may involve shifts in theta and alpha brainwave activity, facilitating introspection, emotional regulation, and heightened sensory processing. Long-term practitioners demonstrate remarkable control over attention and perception, suggesting that disciplined interaction with extreme environments reshapes neural connectivity and amplifies cognitive and emotional integration. These findings align with observations in other ascetic traditions. The body and mind respond as a unified system, finely tuned through practice, environment, and intention. What sets Shugendo apart is the inseparable bond between spiritual insight and physical rigor. Every climb, waterfall immersion, and fasting session is not merely an exercise in endurance, but a method to sharpen awareness and confront the limits of perception. The mountains themselves become both teacher and crucible, revealing the mind's capacity to expand in response to extreme conditions while maintaining focus and clarity. As Yamabushi push themselves through wilderness, meditation, and ritual, they demonstrate that endurance and discipline can expand perception, awaken latent faculties, and foster profound experiences of the sacred. When the human body is subjected to extremes and the mind remains alert, conscious, and centered, the results challenge assumptions about the boundaries of human potential. For at least 50,000 years, Australian Aboriginal cultures have nurtured a profound relationship with consciousness, the land, and ancestral knowledge. Elders serve as custodians of Dreamtime, the spiritual framework that connects past, present, and future, guiding understanding of creation, moral law, and human purpose. Through ritual, song, dance, and storytelling, elders cultivate altered states of mind that allow them to access wisdom, maintain community cohesion, and navigate the spiritual landscape encoded in the land itself. Central to Aboriginal practice are songlines, melodic maps of the terrain interwoven with spiritual narrative. Traversing these paths, often over vast distances, is accompanied by chanting, drumming, and rhythmic movement, which induce trance-like states in both elders and participants. Ceremonial dance and ritual song engage the nervous system, synchronize heart rate and breathing, and shift attention in ways that heighten perception and emotional resonance. Visionary experiences during these practices are interpreted as encounters with ancestral beings, spiritual guides, or messages from the dreaming, the interconnected web of existence. From a scientific perspective, these rituals demonstrate the interplay between rhythm, attention, and neural activation. Repetition, melodic structure, and movement induce theta and alpha wave patterns, facilitating introspection, memory consolidation, and heightened sensory awareness. The focused use of breath, vocalization, and movement engages the autonomic nervous system, producing shifts in heart rate variability, stress hormone regulation, and endorphin release. These physiological changes support sustained trance, endurance, and the vivid experiences reported in ceremonial contexts. Dreamtime practices also illustrate the integration of environment and consciousness. By connecting memory, narrative, and spatial awareness, songlines reinforce cognitive mapping, social cohesion, and emotional regulation. Long-term practitioners demonstrate exceptional attentional control, allowing them to remain immersed in sensory experiences while perceiving subtle environmental cues. The trance states induced are not random. They are cultivated, guided, and structured, reflecting a sophisticated understanding of how mind, body, and land intertwine. Elders also employ fasting, isolation, and controlled sensory exposure to enhance perception and spiritual receptivity. These techniques parallel findings in modern neuroscience regarding sensory deprivation, neuroplasticity, and the modulation of pain and stress perception. Heart rate, breathing patterns, and emotional states are subtly tuned through ritualized practices, demonstrating the mind's capacity to influence physiology in service of spiritual and communal objectives. Through these ancient practices, Aboriginal elders reveal a profound truth. Consciousness is inseparable from environment, culture, and ritual. Altered states are cultivated as a pathway to knowledge, guidance, and connection, both to the ancestral past and the living world around them. For at least 2,000 years, the nomadic peoples of Siberia and Mongolia have cultivated shamanic practices intricately tied to the rhythms of nature and the survival of their communities. In the harsh expanses of the tundra and the rolling steppes, shamans, known as Kam, Bu, or shamans, depending on local tradition, serve as intermediaries between the human and spirit worlds. Their work spans healing, guidance, divination, and maintaining the balance between human life and the environment. Central to northern shamanism is the trance journey, a state achieved through drumming, chanting, rhythmic movement, and sensory manipulation. Shamans enter altered states to navigate spiritual realms, communicate with animal spirits, and gain insight into the health of the community or the herd. These practices often involve extended periods of fasting, exposure to freezing temperatures, and physical endurance, demanding extraordinary regulation of both mind and body. The integration of attention, intention, and ritualized movement allows shamans to remain composed and functional under conditions that would overwhelm an untrained person. Physiologically, these practices reveal remarkable adaptations. Prolonged drumming and chanting synchronize heart rate and breathing, while controlled attention and meditation modulate the autonomic nervous system. Cold exposure and fasting trigger shifts in metabolism, peripheral blood flow, and stress hormones, demonstrating the mind's capacity to influence physiological responses. Pain perception can be altered, allowing shamans to perform rituals that appear physically extreme yet are endured without suffering. Modern research on similar endurance and trance techniques shows that theta and alpha brainwave activity increase, fostering deep introspection, heightened sensory perception, and the vivid imagery associated with spirit journeys. Animal symbolism and environmental attunement are key to northern shamanic practice. Reindeer, wolves, and other local fauna are not simply creatures of the physical world. They represent guides, allies, and forces of wisdom. Shamans cultivate a heightened sensitivity to the land and the herd, navigating intricate ecological and spiritual networks simultaneously. This interplay of environment, ritual, and consciousness reflects a sophisticated understanding of how focused attention and structured experience can extend perception beyond ordinary limits. Beyond the physical and neurological phenomena, these shamans exemplify the power of disciplined practice and cultural framework. Their rituals demonstrate that altered states can be both reproducible and meaningful, tightly interwoven with community, survival, and spiritual insight. The northern shamanic tradition reveals how endurance, rhythm, and ritual can expand human capacities, blurring the line between biology, mind, and the unseen. Taoist practices have evolved over at least 2,500 years, with roots tracing back to the Zhou dynasty, circa 500 BCE, and the foundational texts such as the Tao Te Ching and Zhuangzi. Taoism emphasizes harmony with the Tao, the natural flow of the universe, and cultivates inner energy, qi, as a pathway to longevity, spiritual insight, and altered states of consciousness. Taoist adepts, from hermits in mountain retreats to monastic communities, have developed intricate methods to explore the thresholds of mind and body through disciplined practice. Core practices include Qigong, Tai Chi, meditative visualization, and controlled breath work. These techniques focus on circulating, cultivating, and refining qi throughout the body. Through slow, deliberate movement, breath modulation, and mental focus, practitioners reach states of heightened awareness, deep tranquility, and energy sensitivity. Advanced Taoist meditation enables perception of internal energy flow, regulation of autonomic functions, and profound alterations in bodily sensation. Some masters demonstrate the ability to control heartbeat, lower metabolic rate, and modulate pain perception, illustrating the intricate interplay of mind and physiology. Scientific studies of Taoist practices reveal measurable effects on the brain and body. Neuroimaging and EEG studies show increases in alpha and theta activity, correlating with deep relaxation, attentional focus, and heightened interoception. Breath control and energy visualization modulate the autonomic nervous system, reducing sympathetic stress responses while enhancing parasympathetic activity. Long-term practitioners exhibit remarkable heart rate variability, lower cortisol levels, and even enhanced immune function, demonstrating that disciplined energy practices produce systemic physiological effects that correspond with altered states of consciousness. Taoist cultivation also emphasizes the integration of mind, body, and environment. Visualization of energy pathways, alignment with natural rhythms, and meditative stillness allow practitioners to perceive subtle energetic phenomena. These experiences are often described as the awakening of inner light, heightened sensory awareness, or a profound sense of interconnectedness. Physiologically, shifts in respiration, micro-movements, and subtle muscle control contribute to changes in perception, while neurochemical shifts, including endorphin release and dopamine modulation, underpin the vivid and transformative nature of these experiences. Through centuries of practice, Taoist adepts demonstrate that consciousness can be refined and expanded through disciplined attention, movement, and internal awareness. Altered states are cultivated systematically, combining mental focus, breath, and physical alignment to transcend ordinary perception and reveal the subtle interplay of mind, energy, and body. Dating back to at least 1,200 years ago during the Viking Age, circa 8th to 11th centuries CE, Norse mystics known as Völva or seers occupied a vital role in Scandinavian society. These women and men acted as spiritual guides, diviners, and mediators between the physical and unseen worlds, drawing upon ancient ritual, prophecy, and trance to advise leaders, communities, and warriors. The Völva were highly respected for their ability to access knowledge beyond ordinary perception, often practicing in ceremonial spaces marked by sacred stones, ritual circles, or within secluded natural sites. Yet altered states in Norse culture were not confined to prophecy alone. During this same era, certain warriors, often described in saga literature as berserkers, were also said to enter extraordinary states of consciousness before battle. While the Völva sought vision and communion, these fighters cultivated an intensified trance-like fury known as berserkergang, demonstrating that the deliberate shifting of awareness served both spiritual and martial purposes within Viking society. Central to Norse mystical practice was the induction of altered states through trance, often facilitated by ritual chanting, drumming, or ingestion of plant-based substances. In their trance, Völva would enter states of deep concentration, sometimes described as ecstatic or visionary, to receive messages from the gods, ancestors, or elemental spirits. These altered states enabled them to foresee events, interpret omens, and guide decisions critical to the survival of their communities. Similarly, accounts of berserkers suggest that rhythmic preparation, psychological conditioning, and heightened emotional arousal may have triggered intense shifts in perception, narrowing focus, dampening fear, and amplifying physical resilience. Through visualization, repetitive incantation, and focused attention, the mind was trained to navigate thresholds, whether between the seen and unseen, or between restraint and unleashed force. Scientific exploration of such practices suggests that repeated ritual, rhythmic vocalization, and intense focus can produce measurable changes in brain activity, e.g. studies in modern analogs. Individuals using chanting, drumming, or meditation to enter trance show enhanced theta and alpha wave activity, which correlates with deep relaxation, focused attention, and vivid imagery. Autonomic modulation accompanies these states. Heart rate, respiration, and stress hormone release are influenced, producing pain reduction, heightened perception, and emotional intensity, all of which are hallmarks of Norse mystical experience. The Völva also relied on physical endurance and ritual precision to maintain their altered states, standing or kneeling for extended periods, fasting or exposure to harsh climates heightened awareness and prepared the body for trance. Neurochemical changes, including endorphin and dopamine release, likely contributed to their ability to remain functional while in states of intense ecstasy or visionary experience. These physiological and neurological mechanisms allowed the Völva to safely explore consciousness while remaining grounded in their bodily functions. Beyond the physiological and neurological effects, Norse mystical practice demonstrates a deep integration of mind, ritual, and environment. The seer's consciousness was trained to detect patterns, interpret subtle cues, and navigate symbolic and spiritual landscapes. Through disciplined practice, these mystics illustrate the capacity of human awareness to extend beyond ordinary perception, blending memory, imagination, and focused attention to access insights that were regarded as divine or transcendent. Native American spiritual practices have deep roots spanning at least 10,000 years, shaped by diverse cultures across North America. Shamans, medicine men and women, and spiritual leaders acted as intermediaries between the physical and spiritual realms, guiding communities in healing, divination, and the preservation of sacred knowledge. From the Great Plains to the deserts of the Southwest, these practitioners cultivated altered states of consciousness as a means to access wisdom, communicate with ancestors, and maintain harmony between humans, nature, and the unseen world. A central practice among many Native American tribes is the vision quest. These solitary journeys often involve fasting, extended isolation, and immersion in natural landscapes, sometimes under extreme conditions, to induce profound altered states. Accompanied by drumming, chanting, or ritualized movement, participants experience heightened sensory perception, vivid visions, and a deep connection with spirits or natural forces. Sweat lodge ceremonies similarly employ heat, restricted breathing, and rhythmic chanting to shift perception, intensify focus, and induce trance states conducive to physical, emotional, and spiritual purification. Scientific studies illuminate how these practices affect the brain and body. Rhythmic drumming and chanting synchronize neural oscillations, increasing theta and alpha brainwave activity, which facilitates introspection, emotional regulation, and heightened awareness. Fasting, heat exposure, and controlled breathing modulate the autonomic nervous system, regulating heart rate, respiration, and stress hormone levels. Endorphin release and altered pain perception are also common, enabling participants to endure physically and mentally challenging conditions while remaining fully conscious and present. Native American shamans also employ symbolic tools, feathers, rattles, drums, and sacred plants as conduits for focus and intention. These ritual implements, combined with sustained attention and environmental immersion, reinforce the mind-body connection and amplify the intensity of the altered state. Visionary experiences are interpreted as direct communication with spirits, guidance from ancestors, or insights into the natural world, illustrating the sophisticated integration of cultural practice, physiological response, and consciousness. Through these practices, Native American spiritual leaders reveal the profound capacity of human awareness to expand and interact with forces beyond ordinary perception into the sacred dimensions of life. Christian mysticism, particularly within monastic orders, dates back over 1,500 years, flourishing during the early Byzantine period and spreading throughout Europe and the Middle East. Monks, nuns, and hermits dedicated themselves to a life of prayer, meditation, fasting, and contemplative devotion, aiming to cultivate direct experience of the divine. Orders such as the Benedictines, Carmelites, and Desert Fathers and Mothers developed disciplined spiritual practices designed to refine the mind, quiet the senses, and open perception to sacred realities beyond ordinary awareness. Central practices include silent meditation, contemplative prayer, chant, and prolonged periods of solitude and fasting. Mystics sought to achieve a union with God, often described as theoria, or direct vision of the divine, through sustained attention, internal stillness, and devotion. The repetitive nature of prayer, whether vocalized or mental, entrains attention, harmonizes breath and heart rate, and facilitates the absorption of sensory input into a single focus. Some mystics also engaged in rigorous ascetic practices, including fasting, night vigils, or prolonged kneeling, producing profound alterations in perception, temporal experience, and bodily sensation. Scientific investigation of analogous meditative and contemplative practices reveals measurable neurological and physiological effects. Sustained prayer, chant, or meditation enhances theta and alpha brainwave activity, promoting introspection, emotional regulation, and altered states of consciousness. Fasting and rigorous ascetic disciplines activate stress adaptation mechanisms, modulate heart rate and respiration, and trigger endorphin release, providing pain tolerance and mental clarity. The combination of attention, intention, and disciplined routine demonstrates the brain's capacity to enter deep, sustained states of awareness that alter perception, emotional experience, and bodily response. Christian mystical practices also exemplify the integration of ritual, environment, and symbolic focus. Sacred texts, iconography, architectural space, and liturgical rhythm serve as anchors for attention, amplifying mental focus and facilitating immersion in the contemplative state. Mystics often report experiences of timelessness, profound interconnectedness, and heightened sensitivity to subtle spiritual or emotional currents, phenomena that align with observations in neuroscience of meditation-induced neuroplasticity and altered perception. Through centuries of monastic discipline, Christian mystics illustrate that altered states of consciousness are not confined to ecstatic movement or external stimuli, but can emerge from quiet, sustained devotion, internal focus, and disciplined structure. These practices demonstrate the human mind's capacity to access profound experiences, revealing that the threshold of consciousness may be navigated through stillness, intention, and deep immersion in spiritual practice. Modern mystics draw upon centuries of spiritual, meditative, and esoteric traditions while integrating contemporary understanding of psychology, neuroscience, and holistic wellness. Emerging prominently in the 20th and 21st centuries, these practitioners operate outside traditional religious frameworks, blending meditation, energy work, breath work, sound healing, and movement practices to explore consciousness. They seek altered states not solely for ritual or devotion, but as tools for self-discovery, healing, and expanded awareness. Core practices include transcendental meditation, breath work like holotropic or Wim Hof techniques, Kundalini-inspired energy work, sound baths, and mindfulness-based approaches. Many modern mystics also incorporate movement or body work such as yoga flows, ecstatic dance, and Qigong-inspired exercises to harmonize body and mind. These practices are often designed to induce profound altered states, experiences of unity, heightened perception, expanded awareness, and even temporary dissolution of self-boundaries. The emphasis is on the integration of mind, body, and subtle energy, using contemporary frameworks to guide ancient principles into new contexts. Scientific perspectives on modern mystical practices reveal measurable effects on the brain and body. Breathwork and meditation influence heart rate variability, autonomic nervous system balance, and EEG patterns, enhancing theta and alpha activity linked to relaxation, focus, and heightened sensory awareness. Neurochemical shifts, including endorphins, serotonin, and dopamine, support emotional regulation, stress reduction, and the vivid experiences often described by practitioners. Long-term engagement can produce neuroplastic changes in areas associated with attention, emotion, and self-perception, demonstrating that the brain is highly adaptable in response to disciplined practices of consciousness exploration. Physiological phenomena in contemporary mystical practice mirror those observed in traditional contexts. Pain modulation, slowed heart rate, enhanced breathing control, and altered perception of time and space. Modern mystics also report experiences of energy flow, expanded awareness, and deep empathy, suggesting that consciousness is both malleable and responsive to focused intention. Unlike classical traditions, contemporary approaches often emphasize personal integration and measurable well-being, bridging spiritual exploration with modern science and psychology. African Voodoo and Vodun traditions trace back at least over 3,000 years, originating in West Africa among the Fon, Yu, Yoruba, and other ethnic groups, and later evolving in the Caribbean through the African diaspora. These spiritual systems integrate ritual, ancestral worship, music, and dance to cultivate altered states of consciousness, foster community cohesion, and mediate between the human and spirit worlds. Practitioners, often called Haungans, priests, and Mambos, priestesses, serve as intermediaries, healers, and diviners, guiding followers in personal and communal matters. Central to Vodun practice is trance induction, often achieved through rhythmic drumming, chanting, dancing, and sometimes ritualized ingestion of plant-based compounds. Trance allows participants to become possessed or temporarily inhabited by spirits, LWA, facilitating direct communication with the divine or ancestral realms. These states are characterized by heightened sensory perception, vivid visions, extraordinary physical endurance, and the suspension of ordinary self-consciousness. Spirit possession is understood as a channel for divine guidance, healing, and insight, emphasizing that consciousness can extend beyond the individual into a shared spiritual field. From a scientific perspective, the ritual elements, rhythm, movement, and communal participation induce measurable changes in the nervous system and brain activity. Repetitive drumming and synchronized dance produce theta and alpha brainwave patterns, supporting deep focus, emotional release, and heightened suggestibility. Endorphins, dopamine, and other neurochemicals are released during trance, which modulates pain, stress, and perception, allowing practitioners to endure extreme physical activity and express intense emotion without harm. Autonomic regulation is evident in controlled heart rate, respiration, and stress response, illustrating how ritualized movement and attention can reshape physiology in service of consciousness. The communal and environmental context is equally important. Vodun rituals are embedded in cultural knowledge, symbolic systems, and sacred spaces, reinforcing social cohesion and collective awareness. Instruments, colors, and ceremonial objects act as focal points for attention, amplifying mental states and supporting the safe navigation of altered consciousness. The body, mind, and environment operate in an integrated system where rhythm, attention, and intention converge to facilitate experiences that feel mystical, transformative, and socially meaningful. African voodoo and Vodun practices reveal that altered states are cultivated, structured, and meaningful. Possession, trance, and visionary experience are tools for insight, healing, and spiritual guidance, demonstrating the depth and versatility of human consciousness when combined with ritual, community, and intention. Capoeira and Afro-Brazilian spiritual traditions trace their roots back over 400 years, emerging from the transatlantic slave trade and the cultural fusion of West African, indigenous Brazilian, and Portuguese influences. Capoeira, often described as a martial art disguised as dance, evolved alongside religious and spiritual practices such as candomblé, umbanda, and other Afro-Brazilian traditions. Practitioners cultivate not only physical skill and agility, but also altered states of consciousness, using rhythm, music, and movement to enter heightened states of awareness, creativity, and energy flow. Central to these practices is the integration of music, movement, and intention. During a capoeira game, participants engage in continuous, flowing motion synchronized with live percussion and singing. The rhythmic patterns of the berimbau, drums, and chants entrain neural oscillations, producing trance-like states, heightened responsiveness, and extraordinary physical coordination. In Afro-Brazilian spiritual ceremonies, dancing, drumming, and ritualized gestures induce possession or trance, allowing practitioners to embody spirits, access ancestral guidance, and experience profound connection with the sacred. Scientific studies of rhythmic movement, dance, and music reveal measurable effects on both brain and body. Rhythmic entrainment promotes theta and alpha brainwave activity, supporting focused attention, creativity, and altered perception. The cardiovascular system responds to sustained movement and rhythmic breathing, improving heart rate variability, circulation, and endurance. Neurochemical changes, including endorphin and dopamine release, enhance mood, pain tolerance, and emotional resilience, allowing participants to endure intense physical exertion while maintaining a heightened state of awareness. Physiologically, capoeira and spiritual dances demonstrate the power of embodied consciousness. The body becomes a conduit for rhythm, intention, and focus, merging movement with mental clarity. Practitioners report enhanced proprioception, sensory integration, and fluidity of thought, suggesting that the mind and body operate as a unified system during sustained rhythmic practice. The collective energy of participants, the music, and the ritual context amplify these effects, creating a shared field of heightened perception and spiritual presence. Through centuries of practice, capoeira and Afro-Brazilian spiritual traditions illustrate that altered states of consciousness can be cultivated through embodied, rhythmic, and social engagement. The use of psychedelics to explore altered states of consciousness dates back thousands of years, with evidence of ritual consumption of psilocybin mushrooms, ayahuasca, peyote, and other entheogenic plants across Mesoamerica, South America, Africa, and Siberia. In contemporary times, from the mid-20th century to today, psychedelics such as LSD, psilocybin, DMT, and mescaline have been studied scientifically for their capacity to induce profound shifts in perception, cognition, and emotion. Whether used in ritual, therapeutic, or exploratory contexts, psychedelics provide a chemical gateway to experiences traditionally sought through meditation, trance, or ascetic practice. Psychedelics alter consciousness by modulating neural circuits, especially the default mode network, DMN, which governs self-referential thought and the sense of ego. Under their influence, brain connectivity increases, allowing regions that normally operate separately to communicate, often producing feelings of unity, dissolution of boundaries, and expanded awareness. Neurotransmitters such as serotonin, particularly the 5-HT2A receptor, are profoundly affected, altering perception, mood, and sensory integration. These changes can induce vivid visions, synesthesia, and a heightened sense of meaning, offering insight into both personal and collective experience. Physiological effects include alterations in heart rate, blood pressure, and autonomic nervous system function. While acute responses vary by substance and dose, many studies report enhanced emotional release, reduced pain perception, and shifts in sensory thresholds, mirroring some of the phenomena observed in long-term meditative or ritualistic practices. Neuroimaging studies also demonstrate that psychedelics reduce DMN activity while enhancing global connectivity, correlating with experiences of ego dissolution, interconnectedness, and mystical insight. Importantly, the combination of set, mindset, and setting, environment, profoundly shapes the depth, safety, and integration of these altered states. Historically, psychedelics have been intertwined with spiritual, shamanic, and religious practices, serving as tools for healing, divination, and communion with the divine. Modern research validates their potential in psychotherapy, treatment of trauma, anxiety, depression, and addiction, suggesting that the chemical facilitation of altered states can yield tangible benefits for mind, body, and spirit. Psychedelic experiences, when approached with intention and guidance, reveal that consciousness is highly responsive and capable of experiences far beyond ordinary waking perception. Looking back across centuries, continents, and diverse traditions, one truth shines with clarity. While the practices may vary, there is a remarkable universality in the way humans have explored the mind. From Buddhist meditation and Hindu asceticism to Sufi trance, Native American vision quests, African Voodoo, capoeira, Christian monastic devotion, and the modern mystics' practices, the goal is strikingly similar: to transcend ordinary perception, awaken hidden faculties, and deepen understanding of the self and the universe. Across these practices, we find common patterns. Rhythm and sound, whether in drumming, chanting, or song, consistently shift attention and induce altered states. Breath and body control appear repeatedly, whether through pranayama, cold immersion, or prolonged stillness, regulating the nervous system and shaping perception. Isolation, fasting, or extreme physical exertion are often employed to detach from ordinary sensory input and heighten awareness. Across every culture, the integration of mind, body, environment, and spirit emerges as a crucial principle, revealing that consciousness is cultivated not in separation, but through deliberate alignment with oneself and the surrounding world. Even in the most disparate traditions, the underlying message is clear. Humans are equipped with the potential to explore consciousness in ways that go far beyond what is immediately observable. Altered states, visionary experiences, and extraordinary feats of perception are not anomalies. They are manifestations of a mind capable of flexible, expansive, and transformative awareness. The techniques may differ, the symbols may change, and the cultural lens may shift, but the essence remains the same. Consciousness is a frontier, and humanity has always sought to venture beyond its familiar boundaries. I find myself reflecting on what it truly means to explore the mind. From the silent mountains of Japan to the rhythmic drums of Africa, from the disciplined stillness of Christian mystics to the psychedelic landscapes of the modern mind, humanity has quietly and boldly pushed the limits of perception for thousands of years. For me, this journey is more than fascination. It is a reminder that consciousness is never fixed, static, or confined to the ordinary world we navigate each day. It is fluid, expansive, and layered, waiting for attention, intention, and courage to reveal its hidden dimensions. Each culture, each practice, offers a unique path, yet they all converge on the same principle. The human mind is capable of extraordinary transformation, whether through stillness, movement, ritual, devotion, or chemical facilitation. What amazes me is how, across time and geography, these practices share a profound common thread: the human desire to understand, to connect, and to transcend. And yet, despite all the science, all the history, and all the mystery, there remains something ungraspable, an essence of consciousness that cannot be fully contained in words, measurements, or explanations. From my perspective, this is where the real magic begins. It is a call to curiosity, exploration, and personal practice. The threshold of consciousness is not some distant horizon. It exists within you, waiting for your awareness, your intention, and your willingness to step beyond the ordinary. The journey itself is as transformative as the destination, and each time we explore, we are expanding not just our minds, but the universe within ourselves. As we close this exploration, I leave you with this thought. No matter where you start, no matter which path you follow, the journey into consciousness is deeply personal yet universally human. The doors are open, the landscape's vast, and the discoveries limitless. Step forward with intention, believe and achieve, and see how far your mind can go. Until our paths cross again, stay curious, stay aware, and keep your eyes on the patterns hidden between myth, history, and the stars. Love, light, and cosmic blessings, Mystic Missy.